And
Meeting recording is in progress.
Great voice. Yes. Okay.
All right. Well, then, hi. For anyone who doesn't know me, my name's Bill Henry. I'm the comptroller for Baltimore City, and we have with us today the Vice President of the City Council, Councilwoman Sharon Middleton of the 6th District, and we also have with us Mr. Andy Frank, who is the Director of the Office of Real Estate, and we're going to talk a little bit about the development deal that the city is engaged in with Choo Smith for the reuse of the former Roland Patterson school building. I will tell you that we've had some additional changes in just the last 24 to 36 hours in which the development partner previously identified to do the housing component of the project has moved on. And because the amendment that we had negotiated for the land disposition agreement that was going to go on the Board of Estimates tomorrow was negotiated specifically around provisions that NRP had worked out with Choo, we are not going to be moving forward with the amendment to the LDA tomorrow. So I just wanted to start that off at the beginning. We actually talked a little bit about whether we should just cancel this meeting, but I decided that it would cause more confusion if we didn't have the meeting than if we did, so that we could share that particular piece of information with the 27 people who are here and clearly are very engaged in what's going on. Mela, I see that you have your hand up. Is this something that can wait until after I give?
No, that's an accident. Sorry.
Oh.
Just trying to figure this out.
I was going to say, I just wanted to get that out there before I turn the microphone over to Councilwoman Middleton. This project, as you all know, is in Councilwoman Middleton's district, and she has been taking the lead on the liaison between the community and Choo. And so I would like to give her the opportunity to share whatever she would like to share at this point. Councilwoman Middleton.
Thank you, Comptroller Henry. And I want to, first of all, just thank you and Andy for, just continually trying to work with Karen and Choo Smith on, the next stages as we move forward. I also want to thank Karen and Choo for we're going into, I think, our 3rd year, maybe even longer. This goes way back to when Jack Young was president of the council, then mayor, and Walter Horton was basically handling the project. We know that Walter Horton retired and kind of turned things over to your team. And you have been continually working with Choo Smith and Karen on this, and working with the community. My deep involvement stopped when we basically was in the council proceedings. Remember, this also went through the Department of Planning. So it's been going through all of the stages, continually keeping all 4 or 5 communities up to date as we even change through different people from the administration. So I know that all the communities are still very supportive of the Choo Smith Empowerment Center. And I want to thank Karen and Choo for continually helping to keep that hope alive for our youth, not just in this surrounding area, but, they work with young people throughout the entire city. And our youth need these safe havens. These places are so important. We know that, the dysfunctional quote unquote family, they need help, and we know that they need help. And it's up to all of us in the communities. It's up to the faith base. It's basically all of us to help continue to have places like this, not just rec centers, but have places like this to help our youth be successful and help them as they go and move on with their lives. So, on that note, I want to these communities are again just very supportive of this project, and I've been staying in tune as the comptroller and the real estate director have been on their own working. I have not been a part of that, but they have been continually working together to help push and keep this project moving. And I know it is going to happen. There's just processes that have to happen. And, there's talks and agreements that have to continue. So on that note, I'll stop there and let you move on with the program.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Also, if I could just take a moment and remind people, if you are not speaking, please mute yourselves. It reduces the potential feedback from when other people are speaking, and it also addresses the issue of sometimes you having some background noise in your environment that then becomes background noise for all of us. So the other thing that I wanted to make a point of sharing with everyone today is there is still a process moving forward around the subdivision of the property so that the fields would be a separate piece of property that remain in the hands of the city, while the main site with the school building is what the LDA talks about the city selling to Choo Smith, and their development plan has to date focused on the redevelopment of that parcel. So if you do continue to see references to planning commission action around the fields, that's what it is. It is just the legal separation of the one site into two different pieces, one that will be transferred to Choo when we go to settlement, and then the fields are going to be dealt with separately. We have started conversations with Choo about a long-term lease of the fields, but that lease, once we move into the negotiation phase, that will have its own community engagement process, and there will be additional opportunities where we will be coming back to the community, sharing what Choo is proposing in terms of the specific use of those fields, and taking feedback from interested stakeholders in how the city should address that during lease negotiations. I think that's pretty much what we wanted to make a point of putting out tonight in terms of sharing information, sharing where we are right now. At this point, I've got Karen Bullock from Choo Smith prepared to talk about specific questions as to their development plan. Andy Frank from real estate can talk about the LDA that currently exists between Choo and the city, but which will be amended when Choo identifies a new development partner. And then Councilwoman Middleton can address any questions that Councilwoman Middleton thinks she should address, because that's how it works. So are there any questions from individuals about any of the things we've talked about so far tonight.
Bill, this is Al. So my understanding,
Hey, Al.
good evening. My understanding is that the separation, which is scheduled for Thursday, is completely independent of your lease negotiations with Choo Smith and not tied together in any way.
Well, it's tied together in the fact that if we didn't do the subdivision, we couldn't enter into any kind of conversation about what are we going to do separately with the fields. But yeah, the subdivision will happen regardless. That is so that we will be able to just convey the school site as property to Choo Smith for development purposes, and then that the fact that it will now be two different sites gives the city the flexibility to determine how we're going to deal with the fields.
And another question, are those two fields going to be lumped together as one property, or there's two fields, or is it two separate ones?
Andy?
That's a very good question. Lamella's on the line who's handling that. I believe it's going to be a single subdivision for the two fields. Yes.
One parcel.
One parcel?
One parcel, yes.
And the other point that's worth reiterating, I guess, is that several months ago, there was a discussion by the mayor's office and the comptroller's office regarding some master plan process that would be initiated by the city, not Choo Smith, to evaluate different options for that parcel. Is that still in the plans?
I think that Choo Smith shares the objective that we look at the entire site, including the fields, and so that the master plan process which would require to include the community would also take into account what might happen with the fields.
But Al, just to clarify, I think we might be talking about two different community engagement processes, because the master plan is a requirement for the development that will be happening on the school site.
Right.
And we're going to have a separate community engagement process around whatever conversation we end up having about the fields. So there will be two separate community engagement processes. The master planning process that is required as part of the LDA for the school site, that can't start until Choo has identified a replacement housing partner for the development team. And so that master planning process may not start immediately, but that won't hold up the community engagement work that we do around the fields if we move forward with that conversation sooner. And again, that's partially up to Choo, in the sense of we're going to be reacting to their proposal.
Well, I just point out that one could start that process in collaboration with Choo Smith, but why would you wait for them to? I'm just asking who's going to control it. Is the city going to run it to Recreation Park or to your office? Has they even decided that?
At this point, we're expecting to run it out of the Department of Real Estate. I would assume that there would be a partnership with Rec and Parks in that event, but I would also expect that real estate would take the lead.
Okay.
I have a quick question. You indicated that the housing development partner has pulled out, so there is no longer a housing component. Would that include the apartments?
No. That doesn't mean that there's no longer a component to the project. It just means that it won't be this particular company that is doing the housing component.
Okay. Does the housing component still include townhomes, which were in the original plan, or at this point, is it just apartments?
I guess technically that's a question for Karen.
How you doing? First of all, thank you guys so much for being on. Thank you, Comptroller Henry and Andy and Sharon for all you guys are doing. To answer your question, Ms. Cook, yes, we're going to have housing still. It's still proposing to be apartments and townhouses. We just have to, once we decide our other developer partner, that's when we'll move forward with that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
This is Choo and Joku. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can't. Okay, there we go. Gotcha. Yes, sir.
Just a quick question, and this may be for Karen or for you. Is the project planning to be a by right project, meaning all the approvals will be based in the zoning that's already currently on site, or will it be some other type of plan unit development or some type of rezoning or something to that effect?
Well, I think it would the first part of that would be the land disposition agreement that the city has with Choo requires them to complete a master planning process for the site with a community engagement component, and that master plan has to be approved by the Department of Real Estate and the Comptroller's Office. So we're here to make certain that the community engagement process is followed and that there was definitely good communication between all sides. So that would be the first step. And this is where I would look to either Andy or Lamella to help me out. My recollection is that the zoning for the site is currently it's not like a campus zoning. Yeah, there would be some things that if the master plan called for them and they exceeded the permitted abilities of that particular zone, they would still have to go to the zoning board or the council, whichever, depending on what it is that they're asking for, to get additional approval. So I guess the easiest answer is it is not a by right project unless they choose to only build things for which they are all permitted in the existing zoning.
You could go out there.
Just a reminder again, if you're not the one speaking, please try to keep yourself muted.
I will add that the master plan right now needs to conform to the Cold Spring Urban Renewal Plan, but if the parties are working together, agree that something other than that conformance would result in a better plan, then that's also an option.
Ms. Sugar?
Hi, good evening. Thank you for convening the meeting this evening. So I was wondering if you could break it down for me. If the fields are going to remain under the Department of Real Estate, well, I guess my first question is, why would that happen? Why would they not go to Rec and Parks to be managed, since there's we have community involvement, we have a school, we have a lot of interest for use of the field. So I'm curious why that would be going towards in that particular direction.
Well, when we do have the meeting around the fields itself, the fields themselves, we will make sure that we have people from Rec and Parks to answer that directly. But my understanding from previous conversations is that Rec and Parks feels overextended in terms of their capacity, and they do not feel that they have been given sufficient resources to maintain those fields themselves, which was why there was some conversation previously about selling the fields as well. We are now looking to see if we can find a middle ground where
She's not answering.
somebody is talking and has not muted themselves. But basically, what we understand right now is that Rec and Parks is open to someone else being responsible for the fields. And so that's the position we're working from.
Okay.
They're also open to managing them themselves, which is why this is continuing to be a conversation and is not a done deal in any particular direction.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you explaining that. There's so many pieces of this and it's evolving over time. So I guess then my follow-up question would be, what are the criteria that would be accepted by somebody's on mute, the Office of Real Estate to propose to lease the space or the fields? Would that come to your office or to the Department of Real Estate for if someone wanted to do that?
If somebody wanted to propose a use of the fields, they are always free to make an unsolicited proposal to the city for city property. Anybody can do that anytime, at which point the real estate department would find itself in a position of working to determine which proposal was best for the city.
I see.
In terms of hands up, I saw Ms. Perlman and then Ms. Spence.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, and I'm Brianna Perlman. I have a son at Waldorf. And hi, Bill Henry. It's good to see you. So this is related to what Ms. Shugam was asking about, and it may be that you already answered it. So this isn't going to change in any way, shape, or form the zoning that's already on the fields. Being in real estate as opposed to Parks and Recs does not change the present usage as for the fields. I hear real estate and I think, oh no, they've already decided it's going to be housing or something like that. Where I hear Parks and Recs and I hear, oh, they're definitely leaning towards having this be open space, green space, or somehow for Parks and Rec activity. So I just want to clarify that I'm asking, does that really matter? Is it the same thing? Is it,
That's a great clarification, and that's one that I should make because we sometimes get caught up in how the city does things and not doing a great job of explaining it. So the fields, once they're subdivided, the fields will be under the administrative control of Rec and Parks. What we're talking about in terms of the actions of the Department of Real Estate, think of the Department of Real Estate as the real estate agent for all of the city agencies. So most property is under the administrative control of some agency, but most of those agencies don't have their own real estate folks. So they use the centralized Office of Real Estate for their real estate needs. And so it means they don't have people in Rec and Parks whose job is to negotiate leases. So they would come to the Office of Real Estate and real estate would handle that work for them. So these fields will still technically belong to Rec and Parks once the subdivision is done. Andy and Lamella and the rest of the fine folks in the Office of Real Estate will be helping Rec and Parks find the best way of managing these properties.
okay, so basically it's just the steps involved. It'd be the same steps either way, because Recs and Parks would need to go through real estate anyways, because they don't manage that kind of work.
If Rec and Parks was going to do anything other than simply treating these fields as one more athletic field that they are completely set up to do maintenance and scheduling for.
Okay.
If they were going to do that, then no, they would not need real estate for anything. But if there is the possibility, if someone comes to the city and says, hey, let us take care of these fields for you, then that's where real estate gets involved.
Gotcha. Thank you very much.
Sure. Ms. Spence.
Hello to everyone, certainly to Controller Henry, Councilwoman Middleton, and all others that are online. My name is Sharon Spence. I'm the president of Park Lane Neighborhood Association. I'm a little bit concerned because I thought that we had gone through the community engagement process for all of this some time back. I know we've been attending meetings off and on for a little over 3 years now in regards to this same project. Now we're talking about the subdivision of the fields. And my concern comes from where was everybody, during the last 3 years? How much are the fields being utilized right now? I guess I have a couple of questions. My biggest question is now, why is all the concern about this field when it really wasn't being used that much before? No one was talking about leasing. Nobody was talking about doing anything. Nobody was talking about maintaining. And now that we have a proposal for a project to come that's going to bring housing, that's going to help our children, going to help our seniors, going to help the community, going to help the city at large. I'm trying to figure out, it's like we're going backwards. And that's what's confusing me.
If there's any, if I can say anything to reassure you, we're not going backwards. My experience in dealing with this situation just over the last year or so has been that there's been a little bit of confusion where not everybody feels that they heard the same thing. And I know that I have spoken to people who have shared differing interpretations of what was the same meeting that I know I wasn't at. So I'm not in a position to say which one heard the right thing and which one heard the wrong thing. But I can tell you that the confusion extended to what was in writing. And that was one of the reasons why the city was working with Choo to do an amendment to the LDA, because there were things that were not spelled out in the LDA that parties thought were in there. And so one of the reasons we're having this meeting now is because I want to make sure, like, there's nothing we can do about the past. The past is the past, but there's still a lot of work that needs to be done to bring this project to completion. And Councilwoman Middleton and I are committed to making sure that as we move forward with this project, we're going to make sure that people are engaged, and that wherever possible, we're making sure that everybody hears the same thing and understands where we're all expecting to go with our next steps. So hopefully we can, I mean, I think everybody on this call is excited about Choo's vision for that site, and everybody wants to see the community improved. Everybody wants to see the amenities added. We're just trying to figure out how we can all get there.
Can you tell me what the...
I'll just add that, just to be clear, that myself or the comptroller or the city in general, the conversations that Choo Smith has with his developing side and how they, all of this is focused around funding on their end and making sure things are secure in the process that they follow. And we don't know the conversations that they have, but when, you know, they speak and make and do their negotiations with the comptroller's office and decision makings, we're not necessarily involved in that until the end when they bring things to us like they're doing now at these community sessions. So I'll just add that piece on. So I can understand, Ms. Spence, your confusion as well. As the comptroller said, there's seems to always be several different stories out there, and hopefully, you know, the comptroller and Andy will be around a while to help shepherd the final pieces of this project through. Will kind of keep a cohesive, uniformed, organized process with the community.
Mr. Foster?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on what Ms. Spence and the council person spoke about in terms of, and you mentioned as confusion. There was definitely confusion about use of the fields. In some of the earlier meetings, we were led to understand there was going to be quite a bit of housing development on the fields. In terms of usage, it is used regularly by the Waldorf School. I see Kate Middleton, though she has left, Pat Middleton, I'm sorry, has left the school, was the executive director of the school, and we had a rather contentious meeting. Many of our residents took issue with, I am a member of the Cold Spring Community Association Board, and many of our residents were very upset with us, even though we weren't totally aware of it. There was confusion about those fields. So the fields, number one, they are used. If you come by there in the afternoons, you will see the Waldorf kids using them. Also, some of the Cold Spring Community Association, which is stage 1A, 1B of Cold Spring, plus the Woodlands folks also use those fields. So the fields do get used. The concern is whether those fields are going to remain athletic fields. And I would think that Choo Smith, as an athletically oriented community outreach organization, would hopefully want to use them as athletic fields. But there was great concern, and there is great concern in this community about whether that becomes housing. Also, other members of the community that are nearby, including Ruscombe Mansion and others, have been worried about the green space. So it definitely, this is not something new. This was more than a year ago, a source of great contention. So thank you, Bill Henry. You and I met when you were running. You came by our community, and you know my wife, Edie. So thank you for clarifying. Yes, it was confusion that has occurred, but it is definitely a source of concern, and the fields are used for athletic purposes.
And I'm going to look to Karen. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilman.
May I just quickly add to that, and I remember that real confusion over those fields, and then it was later found out and determined that there was a third field that was constantly in the conversation of, you know, with Karen and Choo, and it, and but that third field is where that's part of the school project.
Right.
That was their field. The fields that are separate, and Andy, you can correct or add to that, are the ones, two fields that are closer to Tamarin.
Right. That's my understanding too. But as I said, as you well know, Sean, because you were in that meeting, a lot of people were confused about it, and it raised, we had to bring the temperature down a little bit around that. So that's why I just wanted Ms. Spence to be aware. It is a field that gets used, and there is great concern about how those fields are developed, at least within the Cold Spring community. And when I say Cold Spring community, as you well know, that includes the woodlands where the council person also lives.
Yeah, this is.
I'd just like to add that there should be no ambiguity. The fields that are being subdivided will remain fields. They cannot and will not be developed. And secondly, they will remain owned by the city of Baltimore. Whether we lease them really is a question of whether the objectives of Waldorf and the community and the objectives of the Youth Empowerment Center are aligned. There may be reasons that that Choo Smith have a role in the maintenance or investing in the sharing of the fields, but that's the process that the comptroller talked about. We don't know the answers to those questions, but those are the questions we have to ask. Can we align the objectives of all that are involved in this process?
And I think
I
Karen
think
will
the
back
comptroller and
this
the
up.
council person have clarified at least that confusion. So thank the three of you for that. Excuse me, Bill, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I saw Karen nodding earlier when we were saying this. The development plan that Choo Smith has shared with the city, all of the building is on the school site.
Right.
They have not even come to us this, like as part of the LDA conversations about trying to build something on the fields, and that would be a non-starter at this point, because we're going to keep, as the city committed to during this process, we're going to keep ownership of the fields, and that's why we're going through the subdivision process right now. I guess going back, everybody whose hands are still up have already spoken, so I'm going to go back in order of original conversation and say Brenda, then Driana, and then if Ms. Spence still has questions, we'll come back to Ms. Spence. You're muted, Brenda.
Thank you, Mr. Comptroller. I just want to thank everyone for really clarifying. Waldorf has been using these fields for the past 20 years, and it is an integral part of our program. So I'm excited about the revitalization of the Patterson High School and that big project. I'm really excited about that. I really hope it gets off the ground. My first job was working in Boys and Girls Club in Philadelphia, in West Philly. So it's something that is near and dear to my heart to see those kind of programs up and running. But we really need to maintain that use of the fields for our own programs here at the Waldorf School. So, thank you.
Brianna?
I want to second what Brenda said, and from the meetings that we've had in the past, it seems like everyone, and I'm not using that everyone lightly, agrees for using the school for the main purposes that we discussed and that are on the original LDA. It's just the fields. And I just want some clarification around this. When Choo was talking about the fields before, they were talking about basically a real, somewhere close to a real stadium with lights and sound, all that kind of stuff, which would impact the surrounding neighborhoods as well at night. If there was a game, when you have the speakers and lights showing, but that's all gone right now because the original planners are gone, and now they need to work with a new developer, with a new contractor.
The housing, the partners that were developing the housing component are the ones that left the project. NRP was not involved in doing anything with the fields. So if Choo were to propose something that involved a stadium and lights and a sound system, then that would be part of their proposal, and the community would have the opportunity to give input on that during the community engagement process. But at this point, we don't have a specific proposal to react to, which is why that any conversation that detailed is premature tonight. This was just about trying to explain that there will be a conversation, a public conversation in the future around whatever detailed proposal is made, but it has not been done yet.
This is where I'm confused, okay? Because I understand that part. That's kind of what I thought. But you're talking about that either way, Choo would be leasing this space. But if they build a stadium or some sort of version of a stadium on the space, that's not something you generally lease because it's a short-term thing. That is I built my house on
interject
here.
May,
Councilor.
I have to say, so, you know, I've been sitting in on all these meetings, and Karen, you can chime in if you'd like. But I remember Karen giving ideas. If you go back in some of the videos, she has always said she is here to work with all the communities. And she was just giving verbal, creative ideas of what to start to generate minds, to start thinking about creative things for that field. I they their vision was a separate vision of that fields, not connecting to what they were doing with NPR and RP. Choo Smith is a very respected person around nationally. And he basically had separate connections to help work and fund that field. And she was just giving creative ideas. It wasn't anything really etched in stone. She had put up a diagram just to generate creativity and ideas. There was nothing solidified about the fields and about the design of that fields. It was idea generated. And I think that was probably part of the misunderstanding that started surfacing also. I think that we should kind of move on because all those things are kind of now in the past. But I do want to add, as a member of the budget committee for the council, recreation and parks came to the council, and you know, they come and give their goals, their mission, their things as they move forward. They are having problems, and they have been saying this in many settings. They have been having problems with maintenance of parks and areas like this particular one. I have several separate little parks really throughout my district that rec and parks are having trouble maintaining and maintenance, and they have come up with agreements such as this to just to maintain the maintenance piece for them, but they are still the owners of those fields.
Ms. Spence. Oh, I'm sorry, Karen.
No,
Thank you,
it's
ma'am.
okay. I just wanted to let you know that I'm gonna let Pastor Spence go, but I wanted to let everyone know that Choo Smith just came in, so he wants to address as well once you get opportunity. So go ahead, Pastor Spence.
You're muted, ma'am.
I'm sorry, I apologize for that. I just wanted to suggest that, you know, we have a diagram, at least it helps me. I'm a visual learner, so that we can see where each field is in respect to the various communities. And then we can see and look at what exactly is planned or being talked about for a specific field so that we don't confuse them. Since there are three, at least it will be helpful to me.
All right.
Hello, how you doing, everybody? How's it going? I just wanted to, I heard about, came in about the last 20 minutes of the call, and I just want to thank everyone. First, I want to start off with you, Bill, for the last part of you talking and making everything clear I appreciate you, just the way you've handled the meeting and shared everything to the community. Secondly, Councilman Middleton, just thank you for your support for the whole 3 years that we've been in this process. Forever grateful to you. Andy, thank you for taking the time to moderate and mediate all the different things that's been happening up until this point. Please forgive me, but I just want to take the time to share a couple things and not be long-winded, but I want to first own my part. For those that know me, I'm not here to pull no wool over nobody's head. I'm not here to put any disdain or hurt or do anything to hurt anybody. The first thing I'm gonna take responsibility for in our organization is that when we first started this process, when we were on a lot of these calls, it was Chickway, it was Miss Spence, and all the different communities. Before we even got to LOI status and before we got to LDA status, we pretty much was talking and was trying to figure out what did the community want, what did the community need. And Karen has been on, and you can go backlog it, research it. Karen is always, because we put a plan together to say we want to make sure that we're entrenched in the community and the community has a voice before we even get started. Because I'm a Baltimore native, I'm a community person. My family grew up in Park Heights and Gilmore Projects area, so it's very dear to me. I know projects that I deal with all over the country that they don't engage the community, they just build. Never wanted that to happen. I want everybody on this call to understand as I look at you straight. We just want to help save kids. And we are a youth empowerment organization that wants to make Baltimore better because we're tired of the killing. We're tired of our kids not having the opportunity to have resources and things that can develop them at another level. I travel all over the world as an ambassador, seeing opportunities, seeing things that kids have that they're able to advance at a whole nother level. I will say to the Waldorf community and the Newtown community, I apologize because I thought that you all were involved. I thought that you all were engaged. I would never not come to the community and not have everyone involved, because when we were on these meetings, we were under the understanding that everyone was on these meetings. When we did the community work, we did Thanksgiving, we did Christmas. We thought everybody was involved. We did not know. And then once we found out, people brought the fields to us. We didn't bring the fields. The fields were coming to us. We were told a lot of different things. Now, I say to you all, that's why I thank Bill and I thank Sharon and Andy for being so clear. We're going to get this project. We're going to get this project. It's going to happen. We're going to do our part. As far as the fields, we all will come together and whatever is necessary based on the leadership of Andy and Bill, we'll make whatever concession for the field. I'm not here to battle anyone. We gotta, as a community, as a city, please, I'm just saying this, we gotta do better. I will come to any of y'all face to talk to you. I even offered that to the community. No one wanted to meet with me. I said, I'll come face to face. Whatever you want to talk about, whatever you want to share, I offered that. People said they didn't want to do it. I got that from Karen. I said, okay, no problem.
I appreciate it. Choo, seriously, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I'm sorry, it's just I have promised several of these people that we would be done by 7 o'clock, and I want to make sure that everybody has a chance to say something. I was trying not to let anybody monopolize for too long. But I think we had answered all the questions for people who had hands up. There are people who are calling in on the phone who I can't, so I don't know if they have a way even to raise hands. So I did want to just check in very quickly before we close this down and see if there was anybody who was calling in who had a question. And I am not hearing anything, so I am going to take that as we are good for questions for the issues that we're dealing with this evening. And what we will be doing is we will be reaching back to all of the communities and to Waldorf when we're ready to move forward with whichever the next thing is. And the next thing could either be the conversation around a proposal for using the fields, or the next thing could be Choo will have identified a new housing partner, and we'll be ready to discuss the new amendment to the LDA, which would have to go before the Board of Estimates for approval. And so with that, I want to thank both Karen and Choo for the project that has brought us together in the first place, and the vision that they have been pushing and advocating for so strongly for the last several years. I want to thank Andy Frank in the Department of Real Estate for the work that he and his folks have been doing. And I want to thank the Council Vice President, Sharon Middleton, for her strong advocacy of her community and for this project. We will all be back in touch with you when there is more to discuss. And until then, thank you very much for being involved, for being engaged, and for caring so much about your community that you're going to spend an hour sitting and listening to people talk about it. So thank you so much, and please have a safe holiday season.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.